Hi, Assalamualaikum. Mr. Ita Ramadhani, that we have waiting for anyone?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Siti Nur. I just found out that I am the chairperson in this room, but unfortunately, I'm not feeling good today. So maybe I leave it to you or co-chair or support team to lead today's presentation. It's okay.
It's okay. Okay, okay, that we can start our session. Before that, okay, on behalf of IJCHT committee, I would like to welcome Professor, Associate Professor, Doctors, and all for joining today's session. I hope we can benefit from today the presentation, and we have 5 presenters today. So sit back and relax and enjoy this presentation. Okay, before we start this presentation, can all the presenter open the camera? I would like to take a picture. Um, Miss Novik Putri.
I'm sorry, please wait a moment. Maybe still loading.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Fairuz Abdul Hakim, can you open your camera? Mr. Fairuz, are you there? Okay, if not, I just take a picture. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that we can proceed to first presenter, Mr. Ita Ramadhani. Okay, I let you start the presentation.
Thank you, Miss Nor Asma. Please wait a moment. Will send my share screen. Have you seen my screen right now?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. I'm very grateful to you all for taking the first time to be here today. For those who don't know me, my name is Itafat Koromadoni, and this is my team. I'm a teacher at Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Indonesia, for Culinary Arts Management program. So, I've divided into 4 main parts. First of all, I'll talk about the background, and then we look at the methods. Next, we dive in the result and discussion, and finally, the conclusions. So, as you seen on your screen, I'd like to about the treasure study. So why I'm telling you this story? The purpose of my presentation is to assure that these issues is important for the future of our students and get a decent job, especially due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So last years, when I was in a meeting with the boss and stakeholders, they conveyed the extent to which soft skills have been taught on campus. We feel we have taught the best. Turns out not in fact. What the biggest problem in the graduate phase today? Uh, I'd like to begin by showing you two charts. The diagram on the left of your screen shows the trend of rising unemployment in East Java at the end of last year's. Meanwhile, on your right hand chart shows the total unemployment rate in recent years. The diagram clearly shows that vocational education graduates dominate the unemployment rate in Indonesia. This is really ironic because vocational high school should be ready to work. So what's wrong? Johannes, 2018, on his research revealed that so many vocational high school, but unfortunately, this is not followed by growth in quality. This result is in line with Nurlaila's finding that there is an oversupply of vocational high school graduates for certain majors. Uh, for example, majoring in information technology and computers, she said there are so many vocational schools that open in this department. And as far I'm concerned, the main issue here is there has been major change in the skill required by labor market for graduates over the past years due to the COVID-19 pandemics. That's cover everything I want to say about the importance of conducting tracer study to describe what soft skill are needed by the job market. Uh, the objective of this study is to determine the employability of culinary arts management graduates from Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Now, let's move on the next topic. Which the method? Firstly, this study utilizes the cross-sectional retrospective survey methods, and there were 85 graduates who graduated from 2019 to 2020 for research samples. Meanwhile, from the stakeholders, we surveyed five companies where graduates work. The response rates, 96% of target respondent. The survey questionnaire was sent via email and WhatsApp, and research was conducted from September through December 2020. The data gathering instrument used by researchers to get the needed information by Information Technology Development Center of Universitas Negeri Surabaya, and data was processed and organized and analyzed using Microsoft Excel. Descriptive statistic was used to summarize and organize data in frequency and percent distribution table. And the last, the researchers have discussed technical issue in this study and make sure the respondent read and agreed to the role that granted their willingness to participate. Let's turn now to the result. As you can see on this chart below, show the gender distribution of graduates. Among the 85 student respondent, or 83% were female, and the 16% were male. Only 2% have married, and the last is 97 are single. This chart clearly shows the majority of graduates are women. Does this effect work observant in the more detail? We are still limited to that point. Maybe next research for detail. This sorry. Let's do whether or not respondent first job required for some respondent unemployment. So the highest is not looking for a job, and the second is continuing studies. And uh, this is whether or not respondent first job requires the curriculum. So uh, compare to the same research in the previous years, this is really contradictory, as evidenced by a very drastic change in the curriculum, which before it was still quite relevant, become less relevant. The vast majority of those who responded state that curriculum on campus has been studied is not sufficiently relevant to current specific development. The curriculum must be create, described, and the mix of hard skill and soft skill, particularly for setting accomplishment criteria and particularly for problem solving abilities. So the next is about the skills. Work skills needed by stakeholders is the most of problem solving needed in the hospitality field. Let me expand on this point. This finding is quite reasonable because in hot kitchen, especially when preparing food, workers are required to be creative to solve problem when food stock is run out or orders are not accordance with customer. So they are required to provide the best solution in addition to hard skills in food processing. This ties with what I said at the start of my presentation. So the main finding or our study is that the data or graduates can be extracted from stakeholders' point of view. So specific skill of graduates are visualized in real terms based on graduate users. And agree with Ahmad, 2012, that problem-solving competence is very helpful for fresh graduate to improve their potential, both social and on problem solving. His research also that problem solving ability should be filled in new curriculum to improve graduate for ability and productivity.
Okay, and you have 3 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. The implication of this research is identifying soft skill needed by the labor market. We know what further action to need to be taken to adjust the needs, such as increasing online learning skill, development online based assessment, and training better language skills, and all of that boils down to improve problem solving skill. So, to conclude, I like to say the insight from this research are important for a variety of reasons. First, this study are critical in identifying and addressing issues connected to curriculum. And present and future culinary student must be able to communicate in prepare for a job and communicate with the department in the campus. And last, according to respondent, the competency that most need and immediately available in curriculum are problem-solving skill and communication skill. Okay, before we finish, I'd like to thank you to the Director of Vocational Program Universitas Negeri Surabaya, and thank you to Treasure Study teams at Universitas Negeri Surabaya for facilitating the process of collecting responding data from alumni. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, I'd be happy to answer them now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ita Ramadhani. So I open for Q&A session for 5 minutes. Any questions to ask from the floor? Any questions? So if not have any questions for Mr. Ramadhani, so I will proceed to the next presenter. Can I proceed? Okay. Uh, so,
Yes, please.
okay, thank you, Mr. Ita Ramadhani. Okay, next presenter is Miss Purimpresh Sankep from Thailand. Is it? Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can
Hi.
start your presentation. I leave it to you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I will share screen. Okay, yeah. Good morning, everyone. You can hear me, right?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone again. Yeah, my name is Purimpresh Sankep from Thammasat University in Thailand, College of Innovation. Today, I'm going to present you the topic is under the name of an application of design thinking for virtual event design attendee experience. So after this presentation, you will understand the background of the study, and I will show you the aim of the study and then the methodology of the study, then show you a bit results, which is this is the working research, and then I will summarize the conclusion and future remark for future study. So I think everyone in this room have the same thought with me that if we don't have COVID-19 right now, we must in the room and have an in-person presentation, right? With other member in the conference and enjoy Malaysia. But because of the COVID-19, we need to have event virtually instead. Like other industry to survive in this business, many event organizations need to find a solution to make sure that their business or their event still continue to have that event without any interruption. And virtual event is one of the solution that most event organizations turn into this day. However, organizing event virtually still have many barriers, such as like less interaction and unreliable network, which could lead to unhappy attendees. And moreover, like if we talk about the study in this event management field, we usually talking about the designing an event experience mainly on the physical event or the factor that influence the experience, not about the process or how can we design event experience virtually. So drawing from the Stanford model design thinking, it can be considered as a technique that can help us to design our design experience. Design thinking is considered as a tool to help the user solve problems by finding and sorting through the information, collaborating with others in the team, and iterating their solution based on the real world authentic experience and feedback. So in this design thinking proposed by the school of Stanford, a process consisting with 5 stages which are empathize, define, idea, prototype, and test. Empathize is about to understand the real needs of the customer through the interview or observation. The stage of defining help to define the problem in order to be able to come up with a solution. An idea in the phase ideating, usually talking about variety of technique from brainstorming to mind mapping and sketching to gather information or to come up prototype that will help the user to create a different idea, different material, and using the last phase, which is the testing, to getting the feedback through observation or interview. So from this process or this design thinking, I come up with the idea that how can design thinking can be utilized in designing experience for virtual event attendee in the academic field, such as like how we use as an educational tools. And in the methodology part, I conduct this research in the leisure event management course with my 50 students that will be divided into 9 groups that need to organize the virtual event with 3 different themes. And the researcher took a role of the observer as a participant, and we will have like the interview and all document gathering from this activity and do the thematic analysis at the end. The entire process of this study consists with the 5 stages, namely empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test that suggested by the Stanford Business School. The first starting with the 4-week activity that explore the attendee experience through the interview and get the persona of the attendee that the participant would like to have at the end. And then the define focus on the 2-week activity to identify the pain point from the target attendee. And then stage 3 is about 3-week activity that focus on brainstorming the solution of the virtual event. And the stage 4 is a 4-week activity that's focused on the ideal virtual event experience. That the goal of this stage is to propose a design solution that highlight a desirable event based on the attendees. And stage 5 is a 1-week activity that the participant need to execute the virtual event, and the participant need to get organize a virtual event based on the theme with different scenario that planned in the stage 4 and get feedback from the participant. Every stage as the researcher of this, which is me, need to interview and get the feedback from the participant in this study to get the key idea what they get through difficulty, challenge that they experience in their activity. So here are the results. Like I mentioned, that is first start with the interview with the target attendee and create a persona and identify the pain point in the second stage. And we start up with the sharing idea like brainstorming, creating the theme of the event before creating the storyboard of that event individually, and gather information like with the team, make a decision what type of the prototype that they would like to use and what type of the sequence of the event that they would like to get in that event. And then they test the actual event and get the feedback from the attendee. So from the result, I would say that the introducing the new approach in the to educational practice allow the student to explore the new thing on their own. But it's quite difficult for Thai students where that they still need to get the right or wrong answer from their lecturer, and they might not get familiar with this type of technique that we usually use, because in the past we mainly focus on the traditional method. But after using this, we found that from the feedback in response to this technique, we usually found that they have some difficulty in the design thinking technique, since the students do not have any idea what is a virtual event and they don't know how to organize a physical event. So to gathering information from the attendee from the interview or brainstorming the idea, it might be some challenge for them at some point. But after the researcher give a feedback and advise them, it seems like to be better. And the next one is synthesizing and framing the idea. Since they don't have experience and it seems like they have many ideas going on, to put up into the same scope, framing the idea and creating the storyboard is quite challenging for our students. But somehow after giving suggest and get some feedback and a lot of brainstorming discussion, it seems like they improve on that. And the most important thing and the most important challenge thing that I found is the communication in teams, where that the student is, since even though they know each other for a while, but they still have some argument on the agreement of the framing work, synthesize the idea, sharing information. and the dynamic of the the dynamic of the team is quite important, like in driving the communication in the team, which is need to be considered for the future study. So to give a conclusion, I would say that this study extend the theoretical foundation by demonstrating how design thinking can be applied in the event management context. It can be both for the practitioner and in the academic area. And the study suggests that the event organizer and instructor who want to apply the design thinking need to consider several factors, such as the technique that they are going to use in the activity, or the background of each participant in using these techniques as well. And the future remark for this study is since the sample size of this study is very small, and it might attract only a particular area, which is in the educational field. So it would be better if you expand this study into the practitioner and who come from different aspects, who specialize in different field of event management, or maybe try this in different type of event as well. So here are the reference, and thank you very much for listening. If you have any question, you can ask me now.
Okay, thank you to Ms. Purimpresh Sankar. Okay, any questions to Ms. Purimpresh Sankar? Anyone to ask questions? Okay, I think they don't have any questions to you. So I will proceed to the next presenter.
Thank you.
Who is Siti IJCHT-21. Miss Siti IJCHT-21, are you here? Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. So you can start your presentation. The floor is yours. Okay.
Okay. Okay, testing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
I can see your screen.
Okay, is it clear?
Yes, here.
All right, thank you. Thank you, co-chair, and Assalamualaikum and good morning to all participants and doctors. So my name is Siti IJCHT-21. I'm from UITM, Pulau Pinang. So I represent my group members to present the title Knowledge to Practice using the softball theory to examine students' intention to practice culinary skill during the online distance learning. Right. So today's agenda will be we will talk about the background of the studies, and then we move on to the literature review, where I will discuss further in a research framework and hypothesis. And the next one will be the methodology, and then we will do some analysis about the finding and discussion. And then the last one will be the conclusions. So when we talk about the online learning, so it's not something new, especially in our education, in institutions, because online distance learning has been implemented in all universities, and there has been a proliferation of online distance learning courses offered by universities, especially the theory course, and many other educational providers in the process of implementing such courses, because we are moving on to the technologies and 21st centuries. So a lot of technologies has been implemented, especially in education line. So however, due to the coronavirus outbreak in 2020, the entire world has been affected, including the education institutions. And implementation of MCO, Movement Control Order, has been implemented all around the world in order to curb the spread of coronavirus, right? So this has become a challenge, especially among the educators and instructors, especially for those who are teaching the practical courses. In this study, we are focusing on culinary art courses because this course has implement hands-on demonstration and also what we call that skill, high-end skill, especially for the culinary art courses, right? And moreover, the use of technology for online learning purpose require content specialization as well as grounding in pedagogy method to deliver the knowledge, right? So when looking at our current situations, so online distance learning seems to be adaptable with the most theory-based courses. Okay. However, when it comes to the practical courses, especially the culinary arts, remains indeterminate, right? So by looking at the literature review, we found that this study lies in the dearth of literature investigating the effectiveness of online-based learning for delivering the practical-based culinary course. So therefore, this study will focus on the culinary art course because of the uniqueness and the delivery method is differ compared to the theory courses, right? So therefore, this study is to examine the factors that influence student intention to practice their culinary skill at home. Right, moving on to the research framework and hypotheses. So this study has implemented the SurfQual model by Parasuraman to measure the student intention to practice the culinary skills by looking at the responsiveness, empathy, assurance, and reliability. If you notice that the SurfQual model should have 5 attributes. However, in these studies, we have replaced the tangible with the online learning platform in order to enhance the finding, right? So online learning platform which carry through 2 attributes, course content delivery and facilitation of interaction by looking at how the knowledge has been delivered using the online learning, right? And then in order to better understand student behavior and intention to perform that certain behavior, so perceived behavior control has been added in this framework in order to understand their intention either to perform or not perform that certain behavior. So perceived behavior control refers to the people perception of their ability to perform a given behavior. So we believe that this variable will help to enhance the finding of this study. Right. And then we're moving on to the next slide, which is methodology. So this study, using a descriptive study to understand the nature of the environments. So in terms of sampling, we are, again, as I mentioned, we are focusing on culinary arts students who have experience in the online distance learning during the pandemic, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are focusing on UITM. We niche our sample size, our what we call that population or respondents by looking at the UITM students Cawangan Pulau Pinang and UITM Dungon Terengganu. The reason why we chose this setting area because both institutions offer diploma in culinary arts, and most of their students, especially the Part 1 student, is the one who has been affected by these current situations. So they don't have any experience in practical courses. I mean, the hands-on experience. Okay, because once they have entered as a students, 3 weeks, what we call that face-to-face education, and then after that they have to shift it to the online distance learning. So that's why we are focusing on this kind of group. So the sampling method will be the purposive sampling. So we distribute the questionnaire via online to the 242 students, and we are able to get 139 questionnaire to be used to analyze the data. Right, so the data analysis that's been carried out using the SPSS software. So the analysis we're using in this study is a descriptive analysis and Pearson correlation to answer the hypothesis and to find out the significance of the variables. Right, so this is the finding. So if you can see the descriptive analysis, we are looking into two campuses, which is UiTM Pematang Pau, Pulau Pinang, and UiTM Dungun Terengganu in Malaysia. So 93 respondents were female and another 46 are male. And then we do the screening questions. Okay, either they have experience in culinary field before, and as you can see, 94 respondents have no experience, meaning that they don't know what is culinary is all about, right? So, and then we carry out the Pearson correlation to see the significance of the study. If you can see, the highest value is a perceived behavior control, okay, which is carry 0.64 value. And then these findings, what we call that, explain that the student perception and motivation has been influenced them to perform a given behavior by looking at the quality of the knowledge delivery. Okay, so the responsiveness, empathy, assurance, and ability also play a crucial role in order to see how these factors, how these attributes influence the student intentions. Okay, followed by the content delivery and facilitation interaction. So this finding is parallel with Liao 2012, as it explains the nature of video playback, feedback, and comment from the instructors also help students to develop their self-confidence to perform that certain behavior, right? And then all the hypothesis is supported by looking at the p-value, right? And then the correlation also provides an indications that there are significant and positive relationship between online service quality attributes, online learning attributes, and perceived behavior control toward the behavior, toward the student intention to practice that culinary art skills at their home. Right, so for the conclusion, we can see that the positive relationship exists by using the self-qual attribute, and then the perceived behavior control, and also the what we call that, the content delivery and facilitation interactions, okay, in order to create the student intention, in order to develop student confidence to practice the culinary skill at home, especially during the online learning. Subsequently, all the hypotheses are supported, and the support by the instructor kind act, support video also will help the student motivation and self-confidence, which leads to intention to practice the culinary skills, right? So, however, this research was suggested to look into the student satisfaction and performance for the better understanding about the student intention and motivation for the future researcher. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Siti Aisyah Tumin. Okay, any questions for Ms. Siti Aisyah Tumin? Anyone to ask questions?
Excuse me. I will ask one question to Miss Siti Aisyah.
Yes.
So I have faced the same problem with my student. According your research, how to make the future target or strategy for this problem, especially when they practice, for example, making food or dessert, etc. So, what your strategy to face this problem in study? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Saita. So what I understand is you try to ask about my opinion about the strategy to motivate students to practice cooking at
Yes,
home,
of
right?
course.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So many instructors facing this problem, especially the culinary arts, because we want to motivate them how to do what to do the basic cutting and etc. So based on my experience in this field and also the study has been conducted, we find out that the what we call that the content, the delivery content should be more attractive, more interactive, standard with the 21st century delivery methods. So maybe you can have the two-way communication, interactive personal communication with your students, but to encourage them to practice, okay, to encourage them to ask questions, and by providing a video how to do the basic cutting from our own initiative to create that video, you know, instead of having the YouTube link and share to them, right? So that's one of the way how to motivate them. So from there we can see how the students motivate and trying to practice what we have taught them during the online classes. So I hope that
Okay.
answers your question.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ita Ramadhani and Siti Aisyah to me. So, any questions from others? So, if did not have any questions from others, so I will proceed to the next presenter. Um, Miss Novik Nokiawati Suyono Putri. So, Miss Novik, are you here? Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear my voice?
Yes,
Because
I can hear
sometimes
your voice.
I have a problem about the signal.
Okay. So, I leave to you to present your paper. Okay,
Okay, I
the floor
want
is
to
yours. Okay.
share my screen. Uh, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity that has been given to me at the International Joint Conference on Hospitality and Tourism 2021. May I introduce myself? My name is Novi Nokiawati Suyono Putri. I'm from Department of Technology and Vocational Education. I'm student there at Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Indonesia. On these occasions, I will present a paper with the title Applications of Blended Learning on the COVID-19 Pandemic Period Toward Competency and Readiness of Vocational School of Culinary Students Entrepreneurship. The first introductions, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed many things in the world, and from data and the KPCPN or Committee for Handling COVID-19 and National Economic Recovery on April 21, 2021, there has been 1,640,849 confirmed case and 1,468,142 recovery, and sadly 43,777 death case. The applications of the healthy protocol has changed various life arrangement in the several sector, and it's include the education sector, making the face-to-face learning process not fully implemented, but it cannot be done. The learning process cannot be stopped in long term So the learning process, starting from the kindergarten to university, carry out temporary learning process adjustment by applying distance learning process, or in Indonesia it's called PJJ, or pembelajaran jarak jauh. Vocational high school as one level of education that very closely related to application activities that require direct face-to-face learning must also carry out the distance learning too. An effort to solve the problem related to distance learning and the practical activity that must continue to be carried out in vocational high school, actually in a culinary program. The research aims to see how the applications of blended learning gain the competence and readiness entrepreneurial students of culinary vocational high school. The research method used is a literature review. Data obtained from database include Science Direct, Google Scholar, ScienceWilly, book, and other research relevant resources. Now, next is school learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has give tremendous emotional burden and threaten their mental health on students. In Indonesia, the national closure of school has impacted 60.2 million students, 2.3 million educators, and 425,451 education institutions. And from that, 14,301 vocational high school and more than 5 million students with almost 218,000 educators. Now, what is a blended learning? One of which, blended learning is originally used to describe the subject that tried to combine face-to-face learning with online learning. And the terms of blended learning is considered a new terms concerning the development of 21st century technology. And the blended learning combine element of face-to-face learning, including the personalized learning, social interactions, direct contact with the language, allowing greater variety and flexibility than traditional learning have. And blended learning is applied using various media that are applied in the ideal way to solve problem. Next is what is a competent and entrepreneurial readiness of the culinary vocational high school, just one of which in Indonesia law number 20 there explained the vocation education is secondary education that prepares students especially to work in certain field, and vocational education contains of vocational high school and vocational madrasah aliyah. The student must take a listen and skill test based on standards set by their field of work is from Mustafa et al. 2015. And the Rupert Evans say that the vocational education is part of the education system that prepare a person to be better able to work in the work group or one field of group. Entrepreneurship is dynamic process to create value added good services and prosperity. It's from Wijoyo et al. 2020. The Tourism Vocational High School of Culinary Expertise must have the expertise competences needed by their work and the ability to be entrepreneurial. It should be known that the role of the vocational education as a medium that can be combined with a learning element in educational technology and give a better impression on the vocational school student and also affect their career. It's from Muhammad Answar and Muhammad and Amir 2013. Next, the discussions. Some of the article study show that the positive result from the applications of the blended learning students to students, including the research article entitled Continental Food Service Teaching Through the Blended Learning Using Web-Based Learning Media. The results show that the post-test show that students obtain a minimum passing score of 75 or 72.6%. Students feel interested in using it with the advantage of using web-based is that easy to read and it's clear for students to follow learning process as well. It's from Mahanani et al. And the line with the article research, the result from the article entitled Feasibility of Learning Media of Culinary-Based Electronic Magazine in Blended Learning show that the e-magazine are based on based learning and equipped with text, images, and video that can be downloaded via QR codes. As a learning media, it is categorized as feasible by learning media expert. Thus, the benefit of the development research can be used as an example of the developing a blended learning based on media. And another research, one of which is the title of the expertizing applications of sanitation and hygiene practice of the productions unit to enhance the entrepreneurship readiness to reduce quality food product for the vocational high school student of culinary program. Explain that the competence is basic ability that can be done by student at the stage of knowledge, skill, attitude. Entrepreneurial competence is divided in three major groups, namely knowledge. The second is attitude or behavior of implementing the sanitation, hygiene, or another skill. Third is entrepreneurial skill. Entrepreneurial skill. From the another research, we know that the face-to-face learning is still needed in carry out the fulfillment of productive subjects, so that the blended learning system can be alternative during the pandemic, right? Like right now. The conclusions is now that the applications of blended learning can be alternative during the COVID-19 pandemic, where face-to-face learning directly still cannot be carried out optimally. Especially in culinary vocational high school with need of face-to-face learning. With the blended learning, learning can be done online and face-to-face. So that when a face-to-face student can be more time efficient and master their material better because previous material has been delivered online. So the target of the achieving the competency skill of culinary vocational high school student can be achieved completely, and student can be competent in the business world as entrepreneurs or in industrial world as a competent expert. From the result of the literature review, there's the suggestions that can be given are teacher can be more varied in using learning method that can be improve entrepreneur competency and readiness of a student of vocational high school culinary program, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the second, it's necessary to improve the facility and infrastructure of the school and vocational students so that blended learning can be implemented optimally, because in Indonesia, in certain area in Indonesia, the fulfillment of the facility and infrastructure for the vocational student is still not evenly distributed, such as students in rural area. Not all have internet access or gadgets or laptop to carry out online learning. It's so like it's very concern to how to make it more more can it's necessary to improve the facility and infrastructure of the school and vocational students so that blended learning can be implemented optimally. And the research limitations is the measuring tools used are different age research, and the second is need a food research on learning media and classroom action research based on blended learning. That's all my presentation. Sorry if there are more or less, might be wrong word. Maybe any questions? I'm happy to ask. I'm happy to answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Miss Novi Putri. Okay, any questions from others?
Hi, Novi.
Ah, yes.
Alexa.
Your voice is
Your voice,
too
eh.
slow. Can you
Yeah, let me
please
ask some questions.
questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We cannot hear your voice.
Oh, you cannot hear my voice?
It's too slow.
Oh, okay. Lama, let me check what happened. Hmm. Yeah, it's already very. Can you hear now?
No, it's too slow.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear Novi Putri? Miss Novi Putri?
Same for me.
Same. You can.
Okay, let me just type the question. I exit and I come back.
Okay.
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 Okay. Yes.
Okay, from others. So Mr. Silverina. Okay, Miss Novi Putri can answer based on you can see at the chat box.
Oh yes, I can see.
Okay.
Just want to know the age of the student in the vocational. Just want to know the age of the student. Oh, want to know the age of the student in a vocational high school in Indonesia. It starts from high school. Some like high school. It's from uh 50, I think. 50.
15.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, 50. 15 until 7 or 18, 17 or 18.
Or depends on cost or
Depends on the governments. Each school have a different standard.
okay from 15, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Miss Madam Silverina. So
My
need
microphone is okay now.
okay.
Yes,
So
I
your
can hear right
question.
now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any questions from others? Okay, if there's no any questions, thank you to Miss Novi Putri
Thank
for
you,
your
Miss Tina.
presentation. Okay, I will move to the next presenter, which is Madam Silverina Annabel Kibat. Okay, so that the floor is yours. So you can start your presentation.
Thank you. Let me try. Hopefully, there's no problem after this. All right. Let me know if you cannot hear me or my screen is not shown now. Yeah.
Um, can you your voice is very slow.
Very
Okay.
slow, huh?
Yes.
There must be something wrong with my audio. Is it possible to hear now?
Uh, we can hear. I can hear your voice, but you have to.
I will shout.
Okay.
Okay, let me try shouting.
Okay.
Okay. This I think the screen is available now, right?
Okay.
So, a very good morning to everyone. I'm shouting right now. I hope that you all can hear me clearly. So,
Okay.
this morning I will present my paper on sustainable tourism transformative pedagogy model. All right. So, before I go further, I'll just introduce my fellow authors. Together with me also Dr. Anderson, Mr. Dahlan Abdullah, Dr. Nur Hidayah, all from UITM, and also Professor Noel Scott from the Sustainability Research Centre, University of the Sunshine Coast, Australia. All right. So, as we all know, the tourism business is one of the fastest expanding sectors of the global economy, right? However, it has this carbon footprint that contributes to global climate change. It's because about 2 billion people before this traveling all around the world each year. And of course, this is before the pandemic happened. You would say that now there's no more traveling activities happen. But don't you think that it will happen again once we got control of the COVID-19? So, given of these negative effects of tourism on the host community, it always become a challenge to all higher learning institution to educate society to become more responsible towards the natural environment. All right. So why the responsibility goes to higher learning institution? Well, most of us have grown up being taught the importance of it.
Sorry for interrupt. Your slide is that's not move.
Not moving. All right.
Not moving.
All right. Let me check.
Okay.
All right. Here. This one
Okay.
okay? Okay. I hope this one okay. All right. So again, I was saying just now why the responsibility go to higher learning institution is because we know that the importance of education today is about being accepted by the society, isn't it? But as we all know, so education today is not only play as essential element in our life, but it also supports the development of knowledge and assists us in gaining and improving our skills, understanding, values, and action, all of which are essential for all of us to know in order to be able to establish a sustainable world. I'm afraid this one let me try like this. I think this is the
Uh,
problem. This one okay?
okay, it's okay.
All right. So this is the challenges for higher learning institution. The first thing first, basically this is the problem that we saw. The first one, the literature on sustainable tourism pedagogy based on education 4.0 paradigm is still limited. And of course, the current syllabus that we are using in teaching our students about sustainable tourism, it needs to be revised because we can see that it doesn't really align with the significant impact of technology. And we know that the generation today, they are so into technology. They are so good with gadget. They are so good with what do you call that, with computers, with telephone, and even video games. Yeah. So these are the generation that we're trying to educate in order for them to be environmentally responsible. All right, so our research basically focuses on three objectives. The first one, we want to examine the sustainable tourism related syllabus that being practices in Malaysian higher learning institution. The second one, we want to evaluate the role of Malaysian higher education 4.0 paradigm towards the development of sustainable tourism transformative pedagogy model. And the last one, number three, is to develop and validate the sustainable tourism transformative model towards nurturing graduates' environmental citizenship. All right, so these are the methodology that we are going to use in order to achieve the three objectives. The first one, we will apply content analysis to identify the sustainable tourism related syllabus that being practiced in Malaysian higher learning institution. Second part is the thematic analysis, which we will collect data from interviews, and the interviews will be done with two different part of the study. The first one will be the undergraduate students who are actually studying the syllabus. And second one will be with the national and international sustainable tourism experts. And the last one, we will use PLS SEM analysis to develop and validate the proposed transformative sustainable tourism pedagogy model. All right, so we come up with this model, and this is the conceptual model of our sustainable tourism transformative pedagogy. So the first part, if you can see here, it will started with the stakeholders, where we will include the higher learning institution, the government and non-government agencies, as well as the industry players. All right. Then we go moving on to the Malaysian Higher Education 4.0 paradigm, where we'll include pedagogy, which is actually the independent type of studying by the students. And also we will include pedagogy, which means peer-to-peer learning, where students will interact with their friends and their team members in order to achieve the education objectives. And the last one, we label and introduce it as cybergogy, whereby we apply technology into the education system. All right. And then these are the three things where we will go forward towards the graduate environmental citizenship, where we apply this according to Bloom's taxonomy. Basically, we will identify three items: cognitive, affective, and cognitive. All right. So these are the things that we hope that we can actually instill some environmental behavior among the students who are actually studying sustainable tourism. All right, so these are the expected findings. First thing first, of course, it's supposed to meet the learning style of the current and future generation. All right, and then we want to transcend the current environmental education and sustainable tourism teaching. And the last one will be the novelty of this study, actually, because we want to integrate the delivery components of Malaysian Higher Education 4.0 paradigm in order to enhance our graduate environmental citizenship. All right. So these are the limitation of our study. We only focuses on the top 50 QS World University ranking in 2021. So in Malaysia, it's only include UITM, Talis University, and MSU. So only these three university. So maybe in the future, research it can be done to other institution as well. Oopsie. Because we know that there's a lot of other universities and private institutions that are actually teaching tourism and sustainable tourism nowadays. So it's worth to study about that as well. Yeah. All right. So I will conclude my presentation by quoting Malcolm X, where he said that education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. So myself and my fellow authors, we really believe that this education model will actually becoming our passport in order to prepare ourselves for our future education. All right. With that, thank you so much, and it's open for questions.
Okay, thank you, Madam Silverina Annabel Kibat. Okay, I open for any questions from others, from audience. Anyone to ask questions to Madam Silverina? Berhenti. Yes.
Just like me, having difficulties with microphone.
Like cannot hear the voice. Mr. Mr. Vern Daim, do you have any questions? We cannot hear your voice.
I'm going to type out the question, yeah, because I'm having some problem here. Just give me a few seconds, yeah?
Okay.
Meanwhile, hi, good morning, Madam Sil.
Hi.
May I ask questions regarding to what you shared just now? What would be your expected outcome that you can see from your research?
We are hoping to actually not really change, but to upgrade the current syllabus that we have nowadays. I mean, the current one, we have all this syllabus without the technology in it. So because of the COVID-19 as well, we were thinking about embedded the technology part towards the education system, especially in sustainable tourism, because we believe that, like what Professor Noel Scott highlighted yesterday, right? He said that experiential learning is something that really important for us to provoke emotions in order to be environmentally sensitive. So we hope that by putting in this type of technology, and the type of technology that we were thinking is like AR and VR into the education system. So we really hope that it will actually improve in the way how the students perceive the syllabus. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Ven is already.
Okay.
How does COVID-19
Mm,
impact sustainable?
Madam Silverina, can you open your slides?
Oh, okay. Hold on, Is it okay already?
Not sure. And
Hold on. Oh my God. Technology is really on me right now.
okay.
Okay. All right. Mr. Ven was asking, how does COVID-19 impact sustainable tourism syllabus in the future? Oh, like I said earlier on, it's already affecting us nowadays because in UITM at least, sustainable tourism syllabus, basically we will bring students to go out for a trip, and we will let them experience about most of the time related to nature, and in order for them to really learn about whatever things that we are trying to convey to them. But then because of the COVID-19, we have been stuck in a room, and we only can show them with videos, this and that, and we feel that the the response of the student is not as good as how we expect them when we bring the students before to the site itself. So this is the reason why we come up with this, the current model, because we think that there might be a way for us to improve in terms of delivery method, especially when it comes with emotions and perceptions of the students towards the syllabus. Yeah. I hope it answer you, Mr. Ven.
Okay, thank
Other
you.
questions?
Thank you to Madam Silverina and others for ask your questions. Okay, any questions from other? If there's no questions, okay, thank you, Madam Silverina, Annabelle, Kipat. Okay, so I will proceed to the next presenter. So Miss Nur Hidayati binti Mazlan, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you
Okay.
hear my voice?
Okay. I can hear your voice. So that I will leave this session. So the floor is yours. You can start your presentation.
Okay.
Um, Miss Hidayati Mazlan. Uh,
Can you see my screen?
No, we cannot see your screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay, you can start your presentation.
Okay, good morning to everyone and to all the audience. My name is Nur Hidayati binti Mazlan. I'm from the IJM Pulau Pinang. I'm here to present our study entitled Understanding Factors that Influence Hospitality and Tourism Students' Satisfaction Towards Online Learning Platforms. Okay, so to begin with, as we all know, globally the pandemic has affected everything, including education sectors. This include UiTM Cawangan Pulau Pinang specifically. In order to ensure the education continuity, now university is shifting from traditional method to the new method that we call online distance learning. So this has led to the challenges of how does we cope from online learning and how does this affect student satisfaction in experiencing online learning. Okay, on my readings, recently Chen et al. 2020 highlighted that at the time the research being conducted, there are scant research on student satisfaction with the online learning platform. Previously there are a lot of studies have been done studying the retention, perception, and readiness, but there are less research about student satisfaction with the online learning platforms. Okay, next is student satisfaction with this online learning platform could be a motivation in the educational process whereby it could encourage students to participate more actively by upgrading some factors such as quality of interaction, quality of service, and platform availability. Next is since this study is focused on hospitality students, it is important to know their satisfaction towards the online learning platform as the subject matters are more practical than a theory. Okay, next is this is our research framework. The research framework for this study adapted from Chen et al. 2020. The independent variable is online learning platform. Consists of three factors, which is quality of interaction, quality of service, and platform availability. And lastly, the dependent variable is student satisfaction. This is research objective. The main objective is to examine the factors of the online learning platform that influence on student satisfaction. So there are three sub-objectives that is to examine the quality of interaction, quality of service, and the platform availability of the online learning platform on the student satisfaction. Okay, for the research question of this study, the main question is on how does the factors of the online learning platform influence student satisfaction. So there are three sub-questions that is how does the quality of interaction, quality of service, and the platform availability of online learning platform influence student satisfaction. Okay, moving on. The foundation of the study. This study will scrutinize the theory of online learning as online participation. Well, the highlighted of the application of this theory is that to enhance online learning, the online learner participation also need to be enhanced. This is the theory by Harstinsky by 2009. Well, this theory is looking at four main points that are participation, may involve the user taking part and maintaining relation with others. Second, participation is supported by physical and psychological tools. Third, participation is not similar to talking or writing. And lastly, participation may involve collaboration. Okay, this study examines the three independent variables that will be the quality of interaction, the quality of service, and also the platform availability. Well, what does the quality of interaction mean? The focus of quality of interaction is about asking and answering the question that involved during online. It's stated by Nandi et al. 2015. Further explain that frequent interactions between lecturers and their colleagues will resulting in a better education experience and student satisfaction. Therefore, when students interact in online distance learning, the smoothness of answering and asking the question is easy. Okay, quality of service. Quality of service highlighted about the service provided by the platform. Tongsi et al. 2019 stated that how providers showing interest when solving problem by the user. Besides that, Kaushal and Srivastava 2021 also highlighted that whenever they are used the platform, the distraction causes dissatisfaction. Therefore, quality of service is important on student satisfaction. About the availability highlighted that how easy to use the platform. According to Apishu et al. 2017, this is the quality that being highlighted in platform quality. Therefore, when students perceive that the online learning platform is easy to use, they will actively participate and help to increase their satisfaction. Okay, the dependent variable is student satisfaction. Recently, Chen et al. 2020 highlighted that the most important thing about student satisfaction is how students perceive the platform usefulness and what are the quality and also how does the quality of the platform services. Earlier, Auduma 2019 also stated that in order to increase student satisfaction, it is important to maintain the quality of education relating to e-learning. Okay, there are the hypotheses of this study. There is a positive relationship between the quality of interaction and student satisfaction. There is a positive relationship between quality of service and student satisfaction. And lastly, there is a positive relationship between platform availability and student satisfaction. Okay, methodology of this study. Quantitative analysis was used. Therefore, questionnaire is the tool used to get the data. For this study, questionnaire consists of part A, B, and C. Thus, Likert scale applied for this questionnaire. Sampling technique used is purposive sampling. This is because the exact number of population is known, but not all respondents will qualify as a respondent. The data was collected by using online survey, and questionnaire was distributed by via a link of Google Form. Therefore, SPSS version 2027 was used for data analysis. Thus, reliability tests, multiple linear correlation, and descriptive analysis were used to run the data analysis. Okay, the population of Faculty of Hotel Management students approximately about 2,228 students, and G Power software and Queji Amalgam table used to predict the sample size. The respondent get from the about 432 respondents in this study. Okay. Showing that the demographic result, the female is about 230 respondents, and the rest will be 112 respondents, that is male, while the level of education for the respondent, there are diploma, undergraduate, and postgraduate. The highest will be diploma with 323 respondents, The rest will be undergraduate and postgraduate. Now, looking at the platform used, there are about 8 platforms, and um, normally used in UiTM Pulau Pinang of Faculty of Hotel Management are mostly used Google Classroom with 138 respondents, and then New Future with 120 respondents, and the rest is Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, and Telegram. Findings and results. Based on the factors that we study, quality of interaction, there is a relationship between the quality of interaction and student satisfaction with a p-value 0.684, shows that positive strong linear relationship followed by quality of service. The p-value is 0.647, also shows positive strong linear relationship. Platform availability with a p-value of 0.677 shows that positive strong linear relationship. Okay. The relationship between quality of interaction and student satisfaction, showing that this is the most factors that will affect student satisfaction, because when a student having a critical discussions between their peers or lecturers, showing that the more communication and the better quality of interaction carried out, the greater the student satisfaction will be. Also supported by Nandi et al. Uh, when there is passive communication tools during online learning are essential to facilitate interaction between learners and participation. Also aligned with the theory of online learning as online participation that is highlighted about collaboration. Next is relationship between quality of service and student satisfactions. Shows that poor service quality may result in student dissatisfaction and demotivating them to continue using the platform. Thus, the speed at which the service provider could respond and solve students' problem regarding the online learning platform, that will be quality of service is about when there is service provider could respond and solve student problems fastly. There will be the level of student satisfaction will be higher. Aligned with the theory of online learning as online participation, shows that when there is a physical tools and psychological tools, they will enhance students' satisfaction. Lastly, is platform availability. When the learning platform are easy to use, it will influence the student acceptance of online learning platform. So also stated by Chen et al. 2020 that when the design environment are easy to use, easy to operate, that will result in student satisfaction. Students are extremely satisfied if the learning content is easy to access. Also that relatively relevant to the learning topic, well organized and understandable. Also aligned with the theory of online learning as online participation, stated that participation is supported by physical tools. For the contribution and suggestion of the study, theoretical contribution that is provides body of knowledge to the online learning platform on the importance of student satisfaction. For the practical contribution, the academician apply newly found approach to engage students using the online platform. Limitation and suggestion only consider hospitality student perspective and not taking into account the opinion of various parties. Future study may give the survey to the student from semester 1. Why we choose semester 1 for the future study? Because this is about satisfaction, so it is very important to get all-rounded of the whole perception, not only experience. So this is interesting to know the mixture of both unexperienced and experienced users. As a conclusion, this study has achieved all the objectives and highlighted the important factors that need to be considered during online learning in making sure that students will be satisfied during their online learning. Um, Namely, the quality of interaction, the quality of service, and platform availability are considered important during online learning. Lastly, okay, and with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
I think you need to switch on your mic, Miss Wan.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Thank you to Miss Hidayati Mazlan. So, any questions from others to Miss Nur Hidayati? So there is no questions. Okay. So before we end this session, so right. Okay. Wait. Okay, I have to play the teasers word for closing tomorrow. So we enjoy this first. Wait. Share consent, entire screen. Okay, that's all. Okay. So that we finish our session. So on behalf of IJCHT committee, I would like to thanks to Professor, Associate Professor, doctors, and all attendees who had spent your time joining today. Okay, I hope we can benefit from this all the presentation. Before I end this session, um, can everyone, audience, open your camera before I take a photo session. Okay. Okay, one. Smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Thank you to all the presenter and all the audience.
Thank you.